What is up, Ravens flock? Huge shout out for your support for the 410 Sports Talk. Chance and Glenn are the best in the business. They're killing it right now. They love talking Raven talk. Make sure you go subscribe to their channel. Let's go Ravens. Big trust.
Welcome in, everyone, to another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm Glenn Martin, here with my co-host and friend of the show, Tony Thornton. Tony's stepping in for Jimmy today, who's welcoming the newest member of the 410 and Ravens flock, as him and his wife are currently at the hospital preparing for the new arrival. So shout out to Jimmy and his wife, Tanya. Congratulations. You guys are going to be awesome, incredible parents. I'm very proud of both of you. So Tony is here. Tony, thanks for coming on and helping me out.
Glenn, thanks for having me on. Certainly, it's nothing like having Jimmy and his, and seeing his antics. But he's very busy right now. But I'm very, very, glad to be filling in for him, and I'm looking forward to a fantastic show coming off a really spectacular game, one of the game for the ages. And now they turn their attention to the Detroit Lions up at Ford Field this Sunday at 1:00.
Absolutely, and to preview this show. We got some help from our sponsor of this show, mybookie.ag. The winning season has started off hot, but MyBookie's continuing to crank up the heat with a $50,000 Survivor contest. So whether you're a new or existing customer, if you've made a deposit with MyBookie, you'll earn an entry into that $50,000 Survivor contest absolutely free. To play, all you have to do is pick one winner a week to keep your streak alive and have a shot at the grand prize. So start off strong with the Ravens pick against the Lions, who haven't beaten Baltimore since Lamar Jackson was in second grade, which is the grade my son is currently in. Or ride a hungry Steelers squad who's looking to get back to their historical dominance over the Cincinnati Bengals. But actually, I'll be rooting for the Bengals in that one. But either way, it's simple to play and win. Even if you don't have a ton of betting experience, which is why I always choose MyBookie for my NFL contest. Head to mybookie.ag now and get in on the competition and use promo code 410, 410 to receive double your first deposit and get an instant access to the $50,000 Survivor pool. Again, that's promo code 410 to instantly double your first deposit up to $1,000. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere with mybookie.ag. All right, so getting into this episode, we're gonna discuss. Look, we got a possible trap game here, Tony, because coming off the emotional high of beating the Kansas City Chiefs in what was an instant classic of a game that we were both in attendance. Matter of fact, my voice is still recovering from the screaming I was doing Sunday night. But before we get into keys and all that stuff, what chances do you give this as being one of those trap games where the emotions were so high last Sunday, we see a dip in those emotions, and they might get caught slipping against an 0-2 Lion team?
I mean, it's a possibility. There's no doubt about it. Going now on the road after a huge home win against the team that has been their kryptonite, if you will, their nemesis, and really showing the world on national television what they could do. And, certainly it was a makeshift team. We all know about the injuries. We all know about some of the odds that were against the Ravens in this game, and to come out with a victory and then to turn things around in 24 hours and begin to watch film on the Detroit Lions, who are, of course, 0-2. Really not much to talk about with the Lions in terms of some of their personnel. They do have some issues in terms of their secondary. They do have, of course, another great tight end, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, in this episode. But it's going to be tough because it was an emotional win, but getting the sense of the pressers today and listening to Harbs and listening to Lamar Jackson, you get a sense that they have turned the page. And, Lamar has made some comments about, that wasn't a championship game. That wasn't a Super Bowl. We need to continue to keep stacking wins. I feel that with this organization and with this coaching staff, they can sort of flip the switch. It's a tough one because you were there, Glenn. We saw the emotions of not only the fans, but also the players and just the excitement. And now to turn that around and say, let's focus in on a team that the Ravens should beat, no doubt about it, based on even with their personnel now. that's a tough one to ask. We can talk more about that as we go into it, but again, that's a tough one to kind of turn your head around. It would be tough for me as a player. I can imagine what they're going through as well.
No doubt. I mean, the Lions don't have the greatest reputation of being a winner. So I think that compounded with the fact that they're 0-2, certainly look for to make sure the Ravens keep that energy going and don't come into this game and have a slip up and lose to a team like you said that they should certainly beat. But give you a little context on what the Lions are bringing into this game and what they've done so far this season. Let's see. They've so far thrown for 550 yards, which is 12th in the league, with 5 touchdown passes and 2 picks coming from Jared Goff. And then on the ground, rushed for 224 yards so far, which is 14th in the league. Just 1 rushing touchdown so far this season, so certainly like to increase that load there. Now, defensively, they've given up 538 yards so far in the air, which is 21st in the league. Giving up 6 touchdowns and have 0 interceptions so far. So not what you want to see from a pass defense standpoint if you're a Detroit Lions fan, and they certainly need to get improvement there. And on the ground, they've given up 227 yards so far this season, which is 15th in the league, and 3 rushing touchdowns on the ground. So a team that's really middle to back end of the pack as far as defensively goes. Now, offensively, they're on the upper half. But a lot of that is coming from behind, Tony. They're trying to get out of a hole, and they certainly found themselves in a massive hole week 1 against the Niners where they were down early, but made a game of it. I mean, came back and only lost that game by 8 points, despite the fact that they were down by double digits the entire game. So they definitely have some fight in them, but Dan Campbell's leading a group that still looks to be lacking in talent. But offensively, a lot of new faces, right? I mean, they got Jared Goff there, come over from the Rams. What's your thoughts on so far on what Jared Goff has done for the Detroit Lions?
Well, I think it was if you look at that trade in, just from afar, obviously the Los Angeles Rams got the better end of that with Matthew Stafford still playing extremely well and at a high level. Jared Goff just didn't quite fit in with that Rams offense, and they felt it was time to move on. But Jared Goff is now in a different system. It's a different type of scheme. Jared Goff has struggled at times this year in the first couple of games, but he still is, this is a guy that, we all know was in the Super Bowl just a few years ago. So this guy does have some experience. He's got a good arm. He's got a strong arm. But the weapons around him may not be as formidable as the weapons he had in Los Angeles. But again, that was a huge trade for really both teams because the Lions had to move away from Matthew Stafford. Matthew Stafford has been a prolific passer in this league for a number of years, but one of the things he hasn't done is really win playoff games. And so it was the right move for him. But again, Jared Goff has come in and, he struggled at times, but, don't forget who he is. He's still a very talented player. And I expect him along, with, they have a coaching staff that's very, very hungry, very motivated, different schemes. They're going to come in. They're going to try to prepare themselves for this high-powered offense that's the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah, they got crazy Dan Campbell leading the way, who's ready to just, suit up. If he has to, I believe he will suit up and play for his team, and at least got a couple downs in him. The guy's gigantic and super intense. But as far as a couple of their key weapons, I just want to set the stage, and then we'll get into what the Ravens have done thus far. Their big weapon, their number one target as far in the passing game is TJ Hawkinson, second-year tight end, I think out of Iowa. I'm off the top of my head. I could be wrong there, but I know a very talented second-year player, a guy that's really got, it's like John Harbaugh said, can run every route in the tree, can make every catch, and certainly is dangerous with the ball in his hands as well. Another great tight end that the Ravens are running into. My goodness, it's not as bad as weeks 1 and 2, Tony, with Waller and Kelsey. But tell me what you think about TJ Hawkinson and the challenge he provides to the Ravens.
Hawkinson is a really good route runner. He really reminds me a lot of maybe a Travis Kelce in regards of his size and his ability to step into zones and get open and really run excellent routes. I would say that he's in the upper tier of tight ends in the league, along with, of course, Kelce and Kittle and our guy Mandrews. you're looking at these guys as being top guys. And Waller, of course, who we face in week 1. This is going to be a challenge because certainly his size and his height certainly can cause some havoc for our secondary right now, which is still, slightly banged up. So it's going to be interesting to see those matchups. Not sure the status of Tavon Young or Jimmy Smith going into this game. So we're going to have to wait and see how this matchup goes. But TJ is he is a force, and that is their offensive weapon. And so that's a guy that certainly we'll talk about keys to the game. I most certainly believe that that's going to be in everyone's keys, is to find him and make sure that they know exactly where he is at all times on the field, number 88.
Yeah, no doubt. It just seems like every single week there's another stud tight end the Ravens have to figure out how they're going to slow down. And thus far, not had a lot of success doing so. I mean, Waller had a crazy game. Obviously, Kelsey showed out and really impressed everyone, and except for Baltimore fans when he seemingly couldn't be tackled by anyone. I was looking for the Buffalo Wild Wings sprinkler head to pop out of the ground and hopefully trip him up, but it certainly did not. But let's see some of the other players that they're looking to bring to cause some trouble. Quintez Cephas, I should say, is, let's see, second on their team in receiving when it comes to the outside threats. Of course, the running backs have a bulk of catches. I mean, man, they throw it to the back a lot in Detroit. DeAndre Swift's got 12 catches already, and Jamal Williams has got 11 out of the backfield. But outside
those are two guys.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say those two guys. What their skill set is catching the balls. And again, that didn't mean to cut you off, Glenn, but DeAndre Swift is a talented player. Jamal Williams is certainly he's a really heavy personality. If you ever heard this guy, he's got a personality, and he's really the heart and soul of this running back tandem. But they do a very good job of catching balls out of the backfield, and you're going to see a lot of that in terms of their skill set. So we don't want to sleep on the running backs that as much, because they are sort of fast and skillful, but they're not going to pound you up the middle. But again, that's not what they do. But again, those two guys are certainly guys that you need to at least look out for.
Yeah, and they haven't really had a chance to really show that running game off because they found themselves in the hole a lot often. So not a ton of carries. And now DeAndre Swift looks like he's battling some injury. Not sure his status going into this game, but look, I mean, it's not like they're devoid of talent with Jamal Williams being a guy who's been around the league for a while, came over from the Green Bay Packers. Like you mentioned, I love listening to his pressers. He's not a Raven, but there's some guys out there you just like listening to their pressers, and he's certainly one of them. Got a great sense of humor, and seems just like a real likable guy. So, look out for if we don't see if we don't see DeAndre Swift, look out for Jamal Williams to be their leading ball carrier. But outside of Hockenson on the outside, it is Quintez Cephas who is the leading receiver. He has 2 touchdowns early in the season. Young guy, not a guy that really jumps out as far as like, wow, how are we going to stop this guy? But look, someone's going to get targets, and someone's going to have to make catches for this team. And I think he's the other guy I'd be looking for if I was a Ravens fan, to kind of keep an eye on how they use him and how he develops, as well as Amon Ross St. Brown. My goodness, Amon Ross St. Brown, the rookie. Hasn't gotten his feet under him yet, but I knew there was a lot of hype coming into the season about what he could turn into. So we'll see and hope that this game is not the game where he kind of gets going. But as far as the Ravens go, just give you a couple of insights on where they're at so far this year. So passing the ball, they are 21st in the league at 447 yards. Surprising, right? I mean, Tony, they're not dead last. I mean, apparently passing yards is the only stat that matters in passing. So I guess they've improved, right?
Not bad for running back, right? Yeah, exactly. You can certainly see this passing game, again, with the injuries, it's been very consistent. It's been efficient, if I would say that word. It's been efficient. If you look at the comparison between, for example, the Cleveland Browns wide receiving core and the Ravens wide receiving core, it's very similar right now. And the Browns have been touted as being a top wide receiving core. If you look at the numbers, the efficiency numbers are actually just the same in terms of completions, In terms of even almost yardage, the Ravens have just a little bit less than 200 yards in receiving yards total. The Browns are just over 200. You would think the Browns with Landry and with all of the guys that they have. Landry, of course, there's some question about if he's going to be back in the next couple of weeks, but they do have a really good wide receiving core. But to compare that against the Browns, it's certainly good to see that the Ravens are going to be at least efficient in the passing game, although we know that's not their bread and butter.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of their bread and butter, once again, it doesn't matter how many running backs get hurt, Tony. I mean, they could all go out, and the Ravens are still number one in the league in rushing yards at 440 through the first 2 weeks, and number two at rushing touchdowns with 5 in this young season. So continuing to get it done on the ground. I mean, could me and you pick up 100 yards if we were back there, Tony, if we were suited up?
What's interesting, no, I think you're right. I think you could definitely get it. What's interesting, Latavius Murray said today that when he looks at the scheme and looks at this running back room, he sees just it's so many schemes and so many possibilities, and really the main person or the main driver of this is Lamar Jackson. And as long as you have Lamar Jackson in the backfield, he feels that the running game is just going to continue to expand. But you're right. The way that this offensive line, especially had gelled, last week, and especially the way that this running back room looks right now, the sky is the limit. You can easily pencil them in for 200 yards rushing almost every single game. And that's something that, the Ravens should be proud of. But again, to see the offensive numbers, in the top 5 already, is amazing to me. I didn't think they would start off that strongly on the offensive side, but on the defensive side, certainly their struggles over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. Now, and I'm getting there next. If I would have told you, I don't care who you're playing. If I would have told you the Ravens would be dead last in pass defense, you'd probably be surprised. Even though they did play, 2 high-powered offenses, one of which being the Chiefs. The fact that they are literally dead last, giving up 752 yards passing so far this season, I think, is a surprise. I mean, I know, look, the injuries have not just been offensive. They've certainly been hitting the defensive side as of late. And in particular, the cornerback room has really been decimated. It's hard to believe that they had just 4 healthy corners, and one of them I've never even heard of. And I do a show about the Ravens, and I've never even heard of them. So, that's pretty crazy to think that they've been that decimated by injuries, but they came up big in big moments, as we all know, that helped them get the win against the Chiefs. But still like to see that. We can't be dead last all year and expect to win many games, right?
Yeah, I think these numbers are going to start to sort of even out, especially over the course of the next 3 weeks, playing against teams that perhaps they are able to kind of make those numbers more even, although, not looking ahead past the Lions, but you have the Broncos, you have the Colts. But certainly, those numbers are surprising, especially with the secondary going into the season or even going into the camp. We all thought that this is the deepest part of the team, but now based on injuries, it's not. And you can tell that they miss Marcus Peters so much. We hopefully can get Jimmy Smith back. Tavon Young was a little banged up, so we're going to see his status for this game Sunday. But hopefully these numbers, Glenn, will turn around. And you'll see a little bit more even, maybe those numbers won't be dead last. But again, give credit to the offenses that they played the first couple of weeks. I mean, Derek Carr and Patrick Mahomes are really right now just playing lights out.
Yeah, absolutely. They are balling. And, with Mahomes, you expect it. Derek Carr, a bit of a surprise to see him playing just as well as he's playing. So shout out to him, even though I hope if we see them again that he plays very, very poorly. But he definitely played out the first 2 weeks. So rushing the ball, much better. They've given up just 144 yards on the ground, which is 6th in the league. Something that, again, we play 2 teams that aren't necessarily known for running, but just like the passing yards, I think eventually over a bigger sample size, these things will kind of even out, and we'll get a better understanding of exactly what the Ravens can do defensively. Have given up 3 touchdowns on the ground and 5 through the air. So, certainly want to get that number down. But we'll see what happens this week against the Lions. But then as far as our key threats, I think the leading rusher, of course, is Lamar Jackson, who's now, I think you said he's 3rd in the National Football League in rushing yards with 193. Is absolutely insane. 2 rushing touchdowns on the ground as well. And then backing him up right behind him is Tyson Williams, the lead back, has 142 yards on the ground, a touchdown. And he added 5 catches for 45 yards. to that. And then the number one guy, I'm really excited about seeing just how much he's grown and taken off, and that's Marquise Brown. He credited T. Martin and Keith Williams with changing his mindset. They both told him, look, you don't have a long time in this league. No one has a long time unless you're Tom Brady in this league. So you got to take advantage of the time and the reps and the games you do have. Encouraging him to look for more yak yards. Let's not go down. You're healthy now. You're not dealing with a foot injury, and he's certainly embraced that. He's got 12 catches, 182 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He's certainly looking like the guy the Ravens thought he would be when they drafted him in 2019.
Yeah, no doubt. He's certainly playing as a number one receiver right now. Although you have Sammy Watkins, the designated number one, but you're so happy to see Marquise Brown really. You could tell he's running better routes. He's looking for the ball. He's getting yak. And I think his development is just certainly it continues to grow. And I look for bigger and better things. I mean, Marquise has a chance, staying healthy, to be 1,000-yard receiver this year. So it's good. He looks good. I know the ankle still bothers him here and there, according to what he says. But for the most part, he has been playing really, really well in terms of that. And it's good because once you bring back Bateman, once you bring back Boykin, then it's going to even help him hopefully get more yards because maybe there's going to be more attention, but especially with Bateman, maybe not so much with Boykin, but Watkins has been there as a mentor. To your point, the receiving coaches, the wide receiver coach and the actual passing coordinator that they've brought in, I think to me has helped him tremendously, and that's a great point you made, Glenn.
Yeah, I think they're certainly paying the dividends that Ravens fans and front office were hoping for. So. Shout out to Marquise for really stepping up. Watkins as well. He's got 8 catches, 140 yards, and is second on the team in targets with 15. And I think, he's been a really nice addition to this offense. I know he had a ball he'd like to have back last week that went through his hands, but outside of that, it's really hard to find anything to be unhappy with. Sammy, he's been healthy thus far after missing some time in camp. So shout out to Sammy. Hopefully he continues to stay on the field. And then Mark Andrews, a little bit of a slow start for Mark Andrews thus far. He's got 8 catches for 77 yards, has yet to find the end zone. But we did see some signs of life last game. What are you thinking about Mark Andrews heading into this week?
I think this could be a breakout game for Mark Andrews. I don't necessarily know if he's going to be the breakout player that we're going to select, but I think he's going to his numbers will start to increase now because I think initially teams were bracketing him and really focusing in on Mark Andrews and not understanding that maybe this Ravens team has other playmakers on the outside. So I think that when everything starts to focus back on Marquise again, then you'll see Andrews opens up. It really is great to have so many talented guys on this team. And Mark is still there. Mark's still a top 3 tight end in this league. He just got paid. He really wants to show that he is worth every penny. We know he is. So I look for Mark to just continue to increase his numbers over the next several weeks. So we haven't heard, we haven't seen anything yet from Mark. So I'm looking forward to his play going forward.
Yeah, and it'd be nice to see some teams loosen a little bit of their clamps on. I mean, double team, triple team. They've been all over this guy. So hopefully he keeps it up and doesn't get discouraged by the lack of targets because he's used to getting, him and Hollywood are usually fighting for the team leading targets. Right now he sits third. So I'm sure he's hopeful that he gets some more and gets in the end zone more importantly because he's been our biggest red zone threat, since he's been here. No doubt about that. So, getting into this game, the one area that I think has the biggest area of intrigue is what offensive line is going to show up, Tony, because in week 1, it was a disaster. I mean, the pressure rate, 54% of Lamar's dropbacks, he had pressure. It was scary. And look, that pass rush for the Raiders, it showed it wasn't a one-trick pony or a one-hit wonder. It came the next week, and it decimated the Steelers' offensive line. So it could be they're just an extremely talented group. But whatever reason, they did some shuffling around after the Stanley injury, moved Big Al from right to left, brought Patrick McCarry, our Swiss Army knife, put him in at right tackle, then had a timeshare of Ben Powers and Ben Cleveland at left guard.
Yes.
All that shuffling led to a fantastic performance. I mean, Big Al, he had a fantastic game at left tackle, was our highest graded player. Bozeman was phenomenal. I mean, Powers and Cleveland showed out. And McCarry shocked everyone and had a fantastic game at right tackle. So, Tony, what the heck offensive line are we going to see this upcoming week?
Well, it's interesting. What it shows you is that when you put a guy in his rightful position on the offensive line, things sort of work out. And I think that Villanova, Al was struggling. He was struggling on that right side. Put him back in his most comfortable position. That's where he probably should stay for the time being, even with Ronnie Stanley coming back, and we can get into that later. And I know that DK has some good points on that. But you look at the way that it was structured. Bozeman has been solid at center. That guy has been money at center. He's had one, I think he made one errant snap. But other than that, he's been really good. But I love the way that Macari is playing. I love the way that that you have that as you call a timeshare. You bring in Cleveland for a few plays, and you bring in Powers. And I think it's just shaping up to be a really, really solid offensive line. And I think, and even Zeitler played well. Over there. So it's just a matter of, them finding themselves. But I truly believe that this offensive line, as bad as it looked against the Raiders, I think that they're now starting to kind of, it's going to be interesting because they're going to be playing. There's, even though we understand the defensive line for the Lions, they still have Michael Brockers. These guys can still get after the passers. So we're going to see if this can hold up and protect Lamar. But I love what we saw on Sunday, especially against, to me, a really good defensive front for the Chiefs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, Chris Jones is a stud, a star in this league, the number 2 interior defensive lineman by most people's measure behind Aaron Donald. And he had a donut. He had zeros across the board outside of snap count and time played. Shout out to that group. Showed out. Very impressive. It's going to be really interesting to see what they do when Stanley comes back. Do they keep Al at left and ask Stanley to go to right, who's nursing an injury? Do they put Stanley back in at left and leave Macari at right, who's been really playing well, and ask Big Al to be their swing tackle for $8 million a year? It's really going to be an interesting, kind of unfolding situation to see how the Ravens manage that, and do they ride the hot hand or do they ride the most, the highest paid player on their team? Is really going to be an interesting decision. And then also, I think left guard is a really a kind of a key spot. I think they want so badly for Ben Cleveland to take this job and run with it, but there's a few things that he must not be doing that well, or that they feel Powers does extremely well, and they keep allowing him to go in there. But I have a feeling that as long as Ben Cleveland continues to stay healthy and practices, that he will take the reins of that left guard job, and Ben Powers, unfortunately for him, will be forced to in the backup role, which is something he's more accustomed to. But Ben Cleveland's got to stay healthy, and he's got to continue to get better. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But I'm certainly encouraged by the play of the offensive line. And Lamar said it. I mean, when John was mentioned in the locker room, he said, all these backs were still the number 1 rushing team. And he said, what's the constant? And Lamar didn't say himself. He said, it's the guys up front. So shout out to Lamar, giving those guys credit, and rightfully so. They certainly deserve it. But let's get into some offensive, defensive keys, some breakout players. And before we do, I just want to remind everyone, this show is brought to you by mybookie.ag. They will match. MyBookie will match up to $1,000 of your first deposit. Use promo code 410. That's 410, and it'll help us out a lot. So, keys to the game. I'm excited about this one because every week we try and come up with a new, refreshing key to the game, but most importantly, we want to be accurate. We want to be right. I mean, it's a little bit of a competition here amongst all of us. So, Tony, what is your offensive key to beating the Detroit Lions on Sunday?
Well, I think the Ravens should obviously do what they do best, and that's continue to run the football, continue to feed the rock to whoever is back there. I think Latavius Murray, certainly we saw a lot of breakout runs from him. Freeman had a couple of nice runs as well. Tyson Williams, continue to run the ball as effectively and consistently as you can. Do not let up on that concept, even if you go 3 and out on a couple of series here or there. Just continue to move the ball on the ground and really attempt some deep shots. It was interesting because, Lamar, at the beginning of the game, the adrenaline was flowing against the Chiefs. He threw the deep ball and just kind of missed Hollywood Brown by a few yards. But he was wide open. That could have been a touchdown immediately. And I think the Ravens need to continue to make those deep shots and really just control the time of possession. The less time you see the Lions on the field offensively, this game will be just a cakewalk as they continue to move through each and every quarter. So continue to run the ball, time of possession, and really attempt some deep shots against this secondary of the Lions that's really kind of banged up right now. They're not really good. They're just not good. So they should really take advantage of that. And I look to see that happening.
Okay, all right. Certainly, they controlled the time of possession against the Chiefs, and I think you're right. That was a huge component in why the Ravens were able to win that game. But for me, the key to the game is just keep scoring. I don't want to see conservative play calls in the second half of the game. I think that's kind of what bit the Ravens in that Oakland game is that they seemed to get a bit conservative. They had a 14-point lead. They were feeling themselves. And I think they got a little conservative after that, and they need to keep their foot on the gas pedal. Now, of course, against the Chiefs, they had no choice because they were playing from behind for the most part of that game. But I just don't want to see them get up and then start taking them lightly because this Detroit Lions team showed they can come back from a huge, huge deficit. They were down so big in that week 1 game against the 49ers. Most, I'm sure, fans turned the game off, and they damn near came back and beat the San Francisco 49ers. So they can score quickly. They can score in bunches. So don't take your foot off the accelerator. Keep the time of possession, but more importantly, get in the end zone and continue to put up points because you just can never. This is a high. Look, most offenses are high powered around this league. It's just what it is nowadays. So make sure you don't let them feel like they can get back in this game because if they get momentum, we know what momentum can do. It can certainly change a game. So for me, it's keep scoring, no conservative play calling towards the end. DK, what's your key to the game offensively? Okay, DK says if Villanueva continues to play at a high level, the offense will. It's hard to argue that. Certainly seemed to correlate. When you looked at the bad play on the offensive line, game 1, they lost. Excellent play, game 2, and they won. I think a lot of teams can kind of say that however much how well the offensive line plays can usually be how well the offense itself plays. So, I certainly agree there, DK, and hopefully they can do so. But defensively, what is your key to the game defensively, Tony?
Well, I think you need to pressure Goff. I think Jared Goff, if you put pressure on him, which I think the Ravens can now, we see Odafe Owe, who I think the new chant is going to be Owe, Owe, Owe in the stadium now because this guy is a bona fide superstar in terms of just his development and what he's doing. I'm not saying he's swift, but he's getting there. Believe me, this guy can rush the passer. So I think putting pressure on Goff, make him make mistakes early on. To get him out of his rhythm, whether it's incomplete passes. Not saying he's going to throw a lot of picks, but make him make some mistake at the line of scrimmage or even scrambling. Don't let him get into a rhythm, and also really kind of contain number 88. I mean that's obvious with the tight end situation. Hawkinson certainly can be a game changer by himself, and if they can do that, and even just limit his targets, against the Green Bay Packers on Monday night, he had 9 targets. It's a lot of targets for the tight end, certainly. And, he had 8 receptions for 66 yards, not a lot of yardage. But again, if you limit those targets and maybe keep it to 5 to 7 in the game, I don't think he'll hurt you. But that's the key. Make sure he doesn't get as many targets. And that's going to be up to the secondary to kind of make sure that happens. And also the linebacking core as well. But those are the things I want to see on the defensive side of the ball. Put pressure on Jared Goff. Make him make mistakes.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly what they're going to try and do. For me, it's kind of piggybacking on your key there. It's make them play left-handed. They got to contain. They got to take away their best option, and that's clearly T.J. Hawkinson. That was my key week 1 was to stop Darren Waller. The guy had 19 targets. The Ravens had no answer. Couldn't stop him no matter what seemingly what they did. So hopefully, now they kind of mimic last week. Last week, they held Ty Hill to just 3 catches for 14 yards. Now, Kelsey did his thing. But look, I mean, not many teams have the dual threat that is Travis Kelsey and Tyreek Hill. I think most teams, if you can take away their number 1 guy, then you have to force some other guys to step up and play in roles that maybe they're not familiar with. And then you kind of see what happens from there. So I think you focus on TJ Hawkinson. Don't let another tight end scorch you like it has the first 2 weeks, because I don't care what you have to do. I don't care if Marlon Humphrey himself has to shadow TJ Hawkinson. Do not let that guy beat you, because he's clearly their most targeted receiver and their most dangerous threat through the air. So, yes, I agree. Contain Hawkinson, and I'll say it again: contain Hawkinson. DK, what's your key? Get some sacks. Simple as that. DK did not mince words. Just get some sacks. And look, I mean, I think the group we're starting to gain even more and more confidence. Good news, Dalen Hayes looks like he's on his way back. He's been practicing, and looks like he's on his way to play this weekend, which is a boost to that group. A group that's already been, I think, a little bit better than a lot of people expected. After Odafe Owe wins his AFC Player of the Week in just his second game as a pro. So shout out to Odafe, and yeah, I agree. I think they got to get some pressure and hopefully get home instead of just pressures. But it was a pretty good pressure last week. Didn't get home, but forced that key turnover with Odafe. So yeah, hopefully that's the case here as well. Now offensively, we got to pick up some breakout players. So Tony, who is your breakout player on offense?
My breakout player, I believe, will be Latavius Murray, and one of my and the reason behind that is that I think he feels very comfortable now in this offense. And hearing him speak today and kind of getting a sense of where he is in that running back room, he's the elder statesman. So he doesn't, and he said he doesn't really know a lot of names either, which was kind of funny. He's still learning all the names of some of the players in the locker room, but certainly I think he's getting more comfortable, and I think he is going to be that. Again, Tyson Williams, my hat's off to him because he knows the system. He's been here longer. However, Latavius is that heady veteran. The guy had almost 1,000 yards last year. I think he's ready to go this year to really take that, take those reins. He understands that he's taken the place of a couple of really great backs, J.K. Dobbins and Gus. We know those are big losses, but I think Murray will have a breakout game. I suspect that Latavius will have 100 yards this particular game in rushing yards, at least 100 plus, in my opinion. So that's what I'm looking for, being the breakout player for this particular game against the Lions.
Yeah, he certainly found himself a nice home, and I'm sure he's happy to have a 1 touchdown per game average for 2 games.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, despite the fact that he got here like 3 days before game 1. My breakout player is going to be Hollywood until I see another offensive player even come close to the production that Hollywood Brown is showing this thus far. I don't know if I'm picking another. Now, of course, Lamar Jackson, not including him, who we could pick every week. But I'm going to stick with Hollywood this week because, I mean, it just seems like he gets all the targets. He gets now all the red zone targets, and he continues to make the most of them. So I'm going to go with Hollywood. DK, who you got? Sammy Watkins. He's been close. This is the game. Yeah, I mean, the guy's second in the team in targets. I think he's definitely he's been a key player already. And if you take away a couple of those drops, which I think he'd like to have back, and he'll tell you he should catch, he'd be even more productive thus far. So yeah, look out for him. Hopefully catch a deep ball. That's what I want to see. Some more deep balls, like you were saying, Tony. Deep shots. Let's hit them. Not just throw them. Let's actually hit them. And now defensively, who's your breakout defensive player, Tony?
Well, my breakout defensive player, I'm going to stick with the pass rush theme and go with Justin Houston. He was real close this past week to get a couple of. He was really putting a lot of pressure. He was real close to getting that sack this past week. And with Odafe on one side, I think you're going to start to see the shift now move. How can we contain this young rookie? And I think the focus is going to be away from that weak side or strong side. And it's going to force Justin Houston now to be able to get to the quarterback. So I see this particular game, Justin Houston, perhaps with 2.5 sacks in this game on his own, because he's going to line up solo. They're going to focus in on Odafe or maybe Purnell or Tyus. And I think you're going to see Houston make a big, big gain this particular week against that Lions offensive line.
Nice. Yeah, I hope you're right, because he is certainly he's been close, and he's made some nice plays, but we got to. I want to see some more sack production out of all these guys. But defensively, for me, it's Chuck Clark. I think he has a pick this week. I think he's going to be a part of some sort of bracket to guard Hockenson. And I think we see a high throw or a tip pass find its way into Chuck Clark's arms. I think he gets a pick this week. So that's my guy this week. What do you got, DK? Who's your defensive player? Marlon, I like it. I mean, I think he certainly brings the energy on the back end of that defensive group. And when he plays well, it just seems to jack up the rest of the team. So hopefully you're right. Maybe we'll see a little Marlon punch in this one and get a ball on the ground, and we'll see what happens then. Now we have our over-under competition. Now last week or 2 weeks ago, Troy was our big winner. Just saw that his package has shipped and his T-shirt is in the mail. So shout out to Troy. Anonymous YouTuber, I don't think we've gotten your who was our last week winner. I don't think we've gotten your address and shirt size. So please make sure, if you haven't yet, to DM us on Twitter, IG, or Facebook so we can get that shirt out to you. But I'm going to have to hammer through these because we do have a guest coming up here soon, and I don't want to leave him waiting. But over under for me, the first one is Hollywood receiving yards. I set the over under at 91.5 yards. Tony, what do you got? Over or under?
I say over. I think he will have close to 100, so around that number. So I'm there. I think I like what he has brought to the table the first couple of games, and I expect another big receiving game for him.
Yeah, that's his season average so far. I think he continues to build on that, and he goes over that 91. So I agree with you. I got him at over. DK, over, under. What you got? Over. Yes. I think Hollywood is set for a big, big year, and the Ravens might have to dig deep in their pockets when it's time to pay Hollywood because he's looking like the guy they hoped he would be. Now, next one, Tyson Williams. Total yards, so receiving and rushing, over under 93.5. What do you got, Tony?
I'm going to say under because I'm counting on Latavius Murray to take a bulk of that this particular week. Listen, Tyson has been remarkable in terms of what he's been through, in terms of being, going from the practice squad to the lead back, all in really 1 year, if you think about it. So what a trip for him. But I just think this is a game where he's still going to have a few, a couple of plays here and there. It's going to look nice. Going to catch some balls out of the backfield, but he's not going to have. He'll probably have anywhere from 60 to 70, and Murray will have the rest of that and will be a top dog.
Okay, all right. I got him going over. I think this is going to be more of a run heavy scheme, and I think he benefits from that. I think he breaks a long one, maybe a 30 or 35 yarder, and that increases his total, and then he catches a couple balls. So I got him over 93.5. What do you got, DK? Under. Okay, I think DK is probably on your wavelength. I do think that Latavius Murray is slowly going to take over the lead back role. I do agree with you there. I guess I'm just fingers crossed that both of them have a good game because I definitely agree. Latavius is definitely up for a big one. Now, this one's a big one defensively here. We got TJ Hawkinson receiving yards set at 81.5 on the over-under. That's his season average, but we know how tight ends have been treating the Ravens. What's your take on this one?
Well, in terms of Hawkinson, I'm going to go over at this point because, again, I'm not saying the guy's going to have 150 yards in receiving, but I think he's going to get his. And I think that's just one of the things that we now have to focus in going forward is how we're going to at least contain some of the tight ends. But again, the Ravens have had some bad luck playing three incredible tight ends down the road. I think he's going to have at least 100 yards in this game.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, Hawkinson's the only guy that scares me. And until the Ravens can show they can slow down an opposing tight end, I'm going to go over again. And I just hope let me look on this. I got to pull up the schedule. Do we face a bad tight end at all this year? Or is it just nothing but stud after stud at that position? Because that's what it seems like. And it's driving me crazy. But so I got to go on over until they show me they can slow down a star tight end. And that's what I think Hawkinson is on his way to being. What do you think, DK? Under. I like it. DK is confident. I hope you're right. I mean, my goodness. I mean, just say you can't. Just take away that guy. Just don't let that guy. Let anyone else beat you, but not TJ Hawkinson. So hopefully DK is right there. I'll certainly be rooting for that direction. Now, penalties have been a bit of an issue, and we know this team cannot afford to be behind the sticks offensively. This isn't a team that can easily bounce back from 1st and 20, 2nd and 20 if we get a bad holding, or even 2nd and 15 if you get a procedure issue. So I set the over-under at 6.5 penalties. Tony, are they going to have over or under 6.5 penalties?
I'm saying under. They've been a pretty well-disciplined team so far this year in terms of the number of penalties. They had some bad calls go against them Sunday night, and really just horrible calls, in fact. So I would say under for the time being. I think they're going to continue to limit their mistakes, and the offensive line is going to continue to just sort of gel, and you won't see a lot of false starts or anything in that regard. It's going to be under.
Yeah, I agree. I think hopefully the heightened attention, because it was Sunday night, big game, most televised game, I think, in a couple of years on Sunday night. And, the refs had some blunders, had some stinkers out there. And I think that combined with the clarification the Ravens asked for, I think kind of, I don't know if it influences the refs too much, but I do think that there's a change in those crazy calls we were seeing, like a lineman down the field when he fell into the end zone from the 2. I mean, it was goofy.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. That was the worst of the calls.
Yeah, I mean, and then I didn't even like the Metabike holding call. I mean, I know he said he understood it. His hand got caught in his pad, but personally, I didn't like that call either. So hopefully I'm going to say under as well. What about you, DK? DK under, nice. Well, I'm always encouraged when DK picks in the right direction for the Ravens because he's usually right on all of our prediction shows. So I'm always encouraged when DK is picking good things for the Ravens. Now total yards. So just so you guys know, pick your overs, pick your unders, and then also we closest to the pin type score and yardage totals are our last two tiebreakers. So if you're tied after the over-unders, this is the tiebreaker to determine if you get the shirt in the mail. So total yards for the Ravens, and this is just closest to the pin. So I got it set at 440 yards. I think they have a really, really good game on the ground again, highlighted, or I should say accompanied with a couple big passes down the field. So I got it set at 440 total yards for the Ravens. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, around the same. I'm at 420 at this point. I agree. I think it's going to be a really decent offensive game for them. It's going to be a nice mix, pass and run. So, yeah, about 420 is I'm sitting there as well.
Nice. Okay. All right. DK, what do you think? 400. Uh-oh. So he thinks you're going to be closer than me. We'll wait and see on that one. Let's see how many. It could come down to just how many possessions they end up with, and that could that could determine how many opportunities they get to that 400. Because I don't think they're going to have trouble moving the ball. It's just a matter of how many times they get it and how long it takes them to get into the end zone. But last one we have is of course the total score. This is always the end tiebreaker for us. For me, I got the Ravens winning this game 27-13 for a grand total of 40. I think it's a pretty easy win. I think it's tight in the first half, but the Ravens really pull away starting in the third quarter. And the fourth quarter is just icing on the cake. So 27-13 with a grand total of 40. What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, I think it's 34-14, a total of 48 points. Some in the same boat. I think the Ravens will come out. Well, I think they're going to come out strong. I think they're going to come out and take a nice lead at the beginning of the game, and you might see a few garbage points for the Lions in the second half. But 34-14 for a total of 48 points.
Nice. All right, DK, what do you think? 33-17. I noticed a quick
Change.
audible because he didn't want to have the exact total as Tony, I see. I think that was his motivation there. So he says 33-17 for a total of 50. Change on added 2 points. Interesting, you added 2 points to your to the Ravens score. I'm not sure if that's a safety or just a total different calculation of score there. But all right. So either way, it looks like the consensus is the Ravens win pretty handily, which will be nice because these last two games have been an emotional roller coaster, and I don't know if I can handle another one without my blood pressure spiking and going through the roof. So it would be nice to see a nice easy win, and hopefully our prediction reigns true. So. All right. Well, that's it for us. Let us know what you guys think. Make sure you participate in our over-unders. Give us your 1 through 4 over under, then your total yards for the Ravens and total score for both teams. We will announce the winner in our recap of this game, and then you'll be able to give us your shirt size and address in a direct message, and we'll send that shirt out to you. But yeah, we'll be pulling for the Ravens. Let us know what you guys think. Are we crazy? Did we miss any big storylines? Let us know all of your comments in the comment section below, and we will talk soon.